this session. And we are recording right now. So it's the 10th of January. And for any of you fans of The Flash, that's Zoom on The Flash. Oh, I pulled that picture in. So if none of you have ever watched The Flash, then you think you don't know what that is. So, all right. So let's start off with any questions anybody has before we get to the questions that people sent me. Nothing?
Is it normal to have cramps during sessions that we are going through?
So during a Rife session to have a cramp?
Yeah, no, not, it was, yeah, I had it during the Rife session.
I would say that would be a good thing. So having any reaction, remember, having any reaction from the Rife is typically considered a good thing. It's the frequencies are affecting those cells. So people say, oh, I have breast cancer and I started running the Rife and I got this tingly feeling in the breast or it hurt in the breast. That's a good thing. So
okay, so
do it to tolerance, I guess. You know, there's some balance there, but if it's just really cramping or really causing problems, move the bulb a little farther away from you and see if it calms down. Get up and walk around a little bit, then go back and lay down. I would try to struggle through it because you could be killing a lot of cancer cells. That's why you're getting pain, because you're getting an inflammatory response at the cancer.
Actually,
how about
I think that the cramp happened while he's been doing in the afternoon for his eczema. And I think that's when it occurred.
Okay, so that's still fine. So remember, those are frequencies for eczema. He's getting cramps, abdominal cramps. How does that affect the eczema? Well, it can be very much tied to the eczema because you could be killing fungus and stuff in the gut. So I'd still try to struggle through it.
So if the Rife kicks your butt, that's good.
Yep, it is.
I was reading about just the last newsletter, and they were talking about that if you really feel some issues like we're talking about when you do sessions, it might be good to go back and repeat the program again right away.
Yeah, that's very true. I do that a lot. So if I feel something with on my Wednesday night, on Thursday, I might run Wednesday night again. So if I go, man, that last night, that was just kicking me, I'll run that night again.
What about back to back? Like I just did a 2-hour one of the short ones. And I was just telling my wife, I think I'm going to go back up and do it again right now.
Absolutely. So it's easier to do when you're doing a short one like that.
Right. Okay.
Dr. Connors, is there a program that you suggest to kick this crud that's going around right now? You know, head cold.
Yeah, you can run the cold and flu oncoming, the stubborn sinus. It's under sinusitis, stubborn. Those are, any of the bacteria ones, the viral complex, because I believe this is really a virus that's going around. The viral complex would be a really good one to run. So yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Thanks.
What about 2000? Somebody said 2008 was a good one to run.
That I haven't heard, but if you heard that, I'd try it, run
that was the one that affected the flu this year the best.
Okay, that's good information.
I have a question. I've got a question with regard to, I think I don't hear as well, especially in the left ear. So is there, some sort of die-off or some collection of something in that ear that I need to be paying attention to?
So you feel like your hearing has gotten worse since running the Rife?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I sense it is. I feel fullness in both ears.
Okay, so you
And
probably
I
have some inflammation in there, and if we looked at it with the scope, you probably have maybe a little middle ear infection. So I'd go back and run the viral complex for sure, because 97% of ear infections are viral in origin.
Okay, feels like there's some fullness, like maybe some fluid back there too.
Sure.
Okay.
Where's that program, the viral complex?
So it's just alphabetically under V.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Anything else?
Did you get my question, Dr. Connor, about using the oxalate balance for my situation?
Okay, no, I didn't get that one. So remember, there's two oxalate products, the oxalate scavenger.
Right.
If you have primary hyperoxaluria, which you typically see on your genetics. And so, okay, somebody could go, well, I don't have my genetics. How do I know that that's it? Well, another way to know that you probably have, or you have an increased risk for primary hyperoxaluria is, do you have a family history of stone formation? So if the answer is, yeah, my father had kidney stones, my mother had kidney stones, my grandpa did, my uncle did, my sister did, pretty much it's probably primary. There's probably a genetic component. And then I would use the oxalate scavenger. So
Okay.
the oxalate balancer is to help heal, do some work to help heal the gut and to bind the oxalate. So you don't have any history of kidney stones in your family, but you can't remember anybody in your family had kidney stones, but you did. Maybe you want to do the oxalate balancer.
Okay. The reason why I was asking is because of my thyroid. I had one lobe removed like 40 years ago. And I think during Norm's examination in our conversation, it came up that you said that that oxalates inhibit T3.
Oxalates can inhibit T3, but also with thyroid issues, with any thyroid issues, if anybody has thyroid issues, they should be off of gluten. Because gluten is a molecular mimic to the thyroid gland.
Ah, okay. Well, we definitely are off of gluten on this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any history of stone formation for you or anything?
No, I don't have any history of that. It was just Norm.
Okay, so then I don't know that I worry so much about oxalates if I were you.
Okay, all right. That's great. Thank you.
Okay, so there was some questions sent to me. One was acid alkaline foods. What should we do? Should we try to really consider that with our diet? And the answer is, well, most of you are. So acid forming foods, you're not, when you're trying to alkalize your body, you're not trying to, I'm only going to eat alkaline foods. I'm never going to eat anything acidic. That's not reasonable. And that's not how God made us. It's about balance. Everything in life is about balance, remember. It's, you could become too alkaline. And that could be a problem. That can be a problem with oxalates. If all I'm doing is eating alkaline vegetables and fruits and herbs and herbal teas and such, and I'm not eating anything on the acid forming part, then that's not always necessarily great either long term. So it is about balance. So try to just don't worry about how to eat alkaline or acid or whatever. Try to just follow the diet that I gave you. Then the question was about chlorinated pools. Is chlorine bad for us? I want to go to a hotel and I want to go swimming in the pool and I'm going to be in with chlorine. Well, chlorine is a toxin. So Chlorine is obviously used to kill bacteria. It's an antibacterial, antifungal. It works quite well, but it is poisonous to us, and it can cause a lot of problems. I've had several patients that their main problem was a chlorine toxicity, but I will say every one of those patients were swimmers. So they were in a chlorine pool several hours a day. So the best way to reduce chlorine is get it out of your drinking water. I don't believe that you absorb a ton of chlorine through your skin. Your skin is a barrier. You shouldn't be absorbing a lot of chlorine through your skin. So if you're going to swim in a chlorine pool and you're going to do it every day, well, then that could lead to problems for you. You could get on a chelator on a regular basis so that it won't lead to problems. However, you have to be careful if you have metal in your mouth, and there's a whole bunch of other steps that you want to follow. So you're going to have to contact me directly if that's your issue. So I can't remember who was asked this question, but if the question is, I go to the health club and I want to go swimming every day, I just love to go swimming every day. Well, there's a lot of chlorine in a pool like that. If you're not drinking the water, you could be just fine. Plus, if you're doing other things, you're not drinking chlorinated water at home, and you're taking a chelator, you could be just fine. So some people are going to be more susceptible to heavy metal toxicity than others, and I consider this a heavy metal toxicity. So it's if you're just I'm going on a trip and I'm going to go swimming in the pool, don't worry about it. Go on the trip and swim in the pool. But if you want to do it on a daily basis, then maybe we need to have a chat. It's very important that you're not ingesting it, because most people have damaged gut borders. Most people are not walking around with damaged skin borders. That's called a wound. And yes, if you have an open wound, you shouldn't be swimming in a chlorine pool. But most people have damaged gut borders. You have wounds in your intestinal tract, and if you swallow chlorine, you're going to absorb it because it's going to get across the damaged border. That's called leaky gut. So make sure you're using a filtration system if you live in the city, so that you're not getting fluoride and chlorine. Fluoride is probably even worse. Chlorine also kills your bacteria in your intestines because it's an antibacterial. So drinking chlorinated water all the time is like taking an antibiotic all the time. That's part of the reason why we have such damaged guts. So GMO foods and chlorine is a big contributor to damaged guts. On that line, the same person asked about probiotic sources and probiotic enemas. Well, probiotics is a word for the biosis of the gut, all the different bacteria that live in the gut. And there's like 100 million different types of bacteria that are in your gut. And that bacteria in your gut comes from the food that you eat and your exposure in the environment. So you could argue that one of the worst things that we do for our kids these days is they don't go out and play in the dirt anymore. They don't help mom and dad garden. They're not exposed to bacteria that then helps create their flora of their gut. They're sitting inside playing video games. And we're drinking chlorinated water that kills all the good bacteria in our gut. We're eating GMO foods that kill all the good bacteria in the gut. We take antibiotics every time we get the sniffles that kill all the good bacteria in our gut. And then we eat crappy food that just damages our gut, and that stuff gets across to our bloodstream, and we end up in an autoimmune state. So probiotics are important. There's different food sources of probiotics. Fermented foods are a great food source of probiotics. Kombucha, yogurt, and if you're off dairy, you could do coconut milk yogurt. And different Asian foods have probiotics in it. The only thing you have to be careful about with fermented foods is that fermented foods also have a high concentration of histamines. And if you have any issues with histamines, that could cause problems and more inflammation in the gut. So if you take a probiotic supplement, you don't have that same thing. Now, my philosophy with probiotic supplements is different than a lot of, if you watch a video from a supplement company, There's a lot of great nutritionists that work for supplement companies, but of course they're a little biased in selling their supplements. My philosophy with taking probiotic supplements is that you have to rotate them. Now, Sun Spectrum, we keep people on for a long period of time because it's also a prebiotic to help heal the gut so that the probiotic can basically have a home to raise a family. And Sun Spectrum, we had cherry-picked the specific probiotic that would be that would cross the acid layer of the stomach. Biozyme also has that similar probiotics that will cross the acid layer, and most of these are really good ones. I mean, I carry all of these, and I think they're good. I tell people to rotate probiotic brands. So took Biozyme for 2 months, then switch to Interphase or Proflora, then switch to There's a lot of other ones on the market. You don't have to buy them from me. So there's a lot of good probiotics on the market. Now there is a whole other philosophy on probiotics for certain conditions, and especially if you have oxalate issues, it can be helpful to take a spore-based probiotic. I'm not going to get into it too deep, but a spore-based probiotic tends to stick better if I got a lot of inflammation from oxalate. So that's why in the oxalate scavenger and in the oxalate balancer, there is a spore-based probiotic. None of these here are spore-based, and they have different strains in them. So you want to switch around strains. That's why it's good to. I have one article on the blog that says, don't wash your beets or something like that. And it's like, it's very healthy for us to get out and get our hands dirty gardening. So we talked a lot about grounding, and Mike posted a video on grounding, which was really good. I have a bunch of stuff on the website on grounding. Getting out in your bare feet in the grass. Well, of course, unless you're listening to this in Florida, it's not really possible this time of year. But getting outside in the summer, working in the dirt with your hands, gardening, having a little organic garden is very, very healthy for your gut, healthy for your whole body. Also, let's just chat real quickly on this little bug that's going around. So a lot of people have this little bug. It might be right now it's thought to be viral, it could be bacterial. Unless you're on death's door, don't run off and get an antibiotic, please. So antibiotics, if it's a bacterial infection, will kill it. But if you kind of struggle through it, drink some soup, put some hot pads on, go to bed, keep warm, run the Rife program. When you have an infection, if you could go through a Th1, Th2 response, a B cell response, you develop antibodies to that virus or that bacteria. That is so healthy for you. Plus, if you're calling it and you're listening to this and you have cancer, I've had people in stage 4 cancer not doing well that get the flu and it puts them into remission. So don't run off and necessarily go to a flu party or something like that. However, that being said, there was an old treatment called Epley's toxins that Dr. Epley would inject a mixed toxin in people, which had a little bit of a whole bunch of different viruses, a little bit of a whole bunch of different bacteria. So it would entice a fever state in the person. It would stimulate a T cell response. That's your natural killer cell response. And by doing so, it would help kill the cancer. So that's what we want with cancer. Matter of fact, last summer on our local news station, they said, oh my gosh, Mayo is experimenting with this new therapy where they actually inject a virus into people with cancer to stimulate a T cell response to kill the cancer. Sorry, I won't say it. But it's like that Epley's toxins was outlawed in the United States years ago as he was labeled a quack. He was run out of business, and it was just very, very sad. So there can be a benefit as long as you're healthy enough to endure that flu or that infection to be stimulating a T cell response if you have cancer. Now, the opposite would be true if you have Lyme disease. You don't want to be stimulating a T cell response, and you will be more miserable with that, but that's another story. All right, any other questions for me?
Yeah, I got a question about the probiotic. I'm taking a fiber and probiotic over the counter product. But I'm also noticing that my stomach is bloating and I feel uncomfortable every day.
Uh-huh.
A couple of weeks. I'm just wondering if with the sun spectrum, if that's too much.
Yeah, it can be. So there's different types of fiber. I mean, what a prebiotic is an indigestible fiber. So some people can react to different fibers. I've had some people react to the fiber in the sun spectrum, and I had to take them off of it. So you don't want too much fiber either. It's this delicate balance of that. So yeah, if you're getting any bloating, back off. That's why, as you noticed, if you looked on the back of your sun spectrum, it says that the dose is actually, the recommended dose is higher than I put anybody on. I don't ever go, we don't regularly go up. It says 31 servings, but everybody's is lasting, 1.5 months or 2 months or even longer, because we put people on a little bit lower dose because I don't want to get that bloating. I figure this is a marathon, not a race, not a sprint, so we go slower with that.
Doctor, when you're talking about bloating, is it limited to just the gut? Because I've been in the last couple weeks, I've been experiencing like a lot of swelling in my feet, my ankles, and other areas. And
well, that's something completely different. So swelling in your feet and ankles has to do with a couple things. Either salts that are, so water, think of this, water follows salts. Water follows salts. So if you have a lot of salts in your tissues, then water is going to remain in the tissues. And you're going to get swelling. Now that can happen for a couple of reasons. You could have what are called leaky capillaries, and that could be the problem. The most common issue with that is lymphatic congestion, though. So your fluid in your legs have to get into the lymph system and then carried up the lymph system by contraction of the muscles and go into the iliac system and into the arteries deep inside you, behind your intestinal tract. If I sit all day, I'm literally physically pinching that lymph system, and I'm going to end up having bloating. If I'm on my feet all day and just standing and not actually moving and exercising and contracting muscles, because the lymph system only moves by contraction of the muscles. And then there is a valve about every 2 to 4 inches. So when I contract the muscles, the fluid squirts up, and then it has a check valve so it can't go back down. So if I'm not contracting my muscles, I'm going to have lymph stasis. So most likely that's lymph stasis, because if you had really leaky arteries, you'd have lymphedema everywhere, not just your legs. So
I'm
the
being
treatment
evaluated for congestive heart failure.
Yep. So if I have congestive heart failure, that means there's pressure in the heart sac on my heart, which is causing my heart, the pumping action of my heart, to be diminished. So I don't get a really good flow and strength of contraction. And that can cause that too. But I would start with, they say, okay, well, sit and put your feet up. Well, that's good. You're just using gravity to help. It's good to stand up and do leg raisers, go up on your toes, move your legs. The muscle contraction does not have to be like I'm going to walk a distance. It just has to be contraction of the muscles. So I tell people if you have to sit all day at work, start writing the alphabet with your toes. Stand up once in a while and do some leg raisers. Try to get up to 200 a day.
So it's okay to stay on the sun spectrum, though, for me.
Yeah, that's not causing it with the tissue swelling like that.
Dr. Connors,
Yes.
I've noticed sometimes, not all the time, but when I take a sauna, if I get the temperature, up pretty high and stay in there about a half an hour, sometimes my sweat smells like ammonia. Is that a problem?
So, well, that's just a sign. So when your sweat smells like ammonia, that is really always a problem with, show you the pathway if you really want to know. So this genetic pathway right here. So if I have CBS gene defects, CTH gene defects, or any of these genes, I am not going to be able to detox ammonia. And people will say my sweat smells like ammonia, my urine smells like ammonia, sometimes my feces smells like ammonia. It's because of these defects. So that's not necessarily bad that your sweat smells. You got to get rid of it. So I'd say keep doing it, but it's a sign of this pathway not working well.
Okay.
Was that Crystal?
Yes.
Do you want to share? You don't have to. Do you want to share your testimony on something?
Sure.
Okay.
I have been on your zinc and DMSO, do I call it solution?
Yeah, that topical solution, sure.
Yeah, for about 14 days now, and I can tell visibly and I can feel that my tumor has shrunk. It was hard and very round before, and now it's soft and it kind of feels like cottage cheese. So it's working. And I'm
Praise God. That's fantastic.
That's
Where
great.
was the
Yes.
tumor?
That's great.
Thank
Where
you.
was the tumor?
It's in my breast.
Oh,
Great.
So-
David's going to try some of that. We just talked to Dr. Connors about it today.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really good for tumors that are relatively close to the skin. So if you have something in your spine, in your on the pelvis, if it's deep in the femur, it might not get there. It's still worth a try. It's cheap. If the tumor is in your colon, it's probably not going to get there. But then I would consider just using zinc, the zinc liver chelate product. It's the whole idea of zinc killing cancer. So if we can get zinc to the cancer, then it's going to be extremely helpful. I got to wrap this up. Thank you for sharing that, Crystal. I really appreciate that.
Sure. Thank you.
Made my week, made my year. So it's just, sometimes it's really easy to get discouraged doing what we do. And, we come against a lot of garbage. And our patients are what just brighten our day. So when we hear testimonies like that, it's really a blessing. I will share with you that I'm going to be on a Zoom call with a very special person next week. That I'm not going to open the Zoom call up to everybody, but I will record it and I will put it on the Facebook page, and you are going to want to watch that because it's a very exciting new thing that we're going to be adding to the clinic that is just I'm really super excited about. I won't tell you any more about it until then, but it's going to be a wonderful blessing. So I will post that, watch that video when I post it next week.
I just wanted to make a suggestion for a future session. Could you go over at one point, like going over all the different types of beans and nuts, like which are the good ones to eat and which are not?
Sure. The hard part about that is that it can be different with everybody.
Yeah.
So some people will have, people have noticed to have like a lot of sensitivities in their diet. Then we want to run a test called the Cyrex Array 10. And that's a blood test. And I don't do it on everybody because it's kind of a pricey test. It costs about $750 or something like that. But we send you the kit, you go get a draw, and then it gives you a readout on if you have antibodies to about 300 different foods. And it's a very special test because it tests for cooked and raw on a lot of things. So people react differently to a cooked protein than they do a raw protein. So it makes a big difference. But there's some general things that, yes, we can hit on another one. I'll write that down so maybe we can do that next week.
Okay.
So you're gonna be 2 Zoom calls next week?
Well, the one I'm not going to open up because I'm going to be interviewing a person.
Right.
And that one is I'll post on Facebook. So watch for that.
Right. Then there'll be the normal one like this.
Uh-huh.
Okay, great.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Dr. Connors.
Thank
We will
you.
talk soon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, you bet.
Thank you.